and a small premise setting, I would like to share with you that for any B school, the parents, alumni, faculty, and recruiters are very important stakeholders. And we had the first series dedicated to faculty. The second series had you interact with the alumni. And then we also had an interaction with your parents. And now we are talking about a third series, which is dedicated to our recruiters. Recruiters at Jaipuria are very important in that sense that they're not only recruiters who place our students, they're also our they're also our partners, our associates, our advisors, our guides in the journey of the institute. So it is a there is a very strong backward integration where the recruiters help us in designing the curriculum, giving us inputs, and they also help us
अक्षय
in training our
वो
students
लगाया नहीं पावर कॉर्ड.
and stuff like that. So to debut with the series, we have with us a very important recruiter of ours. He is Mr. Rahul Nandi. He is the talent acquisition leader at GE Healthcare, taking care of South Asia. And there are very strong words to describe him as a global recruitment specialist, a talent obsessed person, and a workforce builder. He is known in industry circles as a person with a sharp business acumen and an ROI approach to hiring. And he has done similar roles with brands like Apple, HP, and Amazon. And I'm sure all these are brands which are supposedly your dream destinations too. So to handhold you for this session, I'm sure there could be none other than Mr. Nandi. He is a recruitment specialist, a talent acquisition specialist, does a specialized hiring day in and day out, and he can let you know what all is needed to get where you want to get in brands of esteem where he has worked, and he can surely tell you about what attributes are needed in an MBA incumbent when it comes to be hired for big brands, strong brands, and brands where he has worked. So I'm sure he'll be able to excite you and engage you enough for a 2-year journey. And over to you, Mr. Nandi. I'm sure my students are waiting very eagerly for your secret recipes and what things do you look for when you hire an individual, and what are the attributes and the skill sets they should carry to be employable with brands of repute and esteem. Thank you so much, and we are very overwhelmed to have you around here, and looking forward for a great interactive session. Thank you, Mr. Nandi.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for the warm welcome, and good morning, everyone. I'm Rahul Nandi. I'm very excited to be a part of this webinar. I was kind of told, I think early this week, that Jaipuria College wanted me to kind of have a session with the new MBA entrant. So first of all, congratulations to everyone. I'm sure this must be a tough journey for you. For some people, it must be a dream course. Jaipuria is a fantastic institute. I've been personally there last October, and GE Healthcare has been recruiting from them for quite a number of years, and very proud to say that most of your alumni sitting out of here have really proved themselves. They've done exceptionally well. Some of them obviously are getting into senior leadership roles. So congratulations. I'm sure you in the next couple of months you will figure out that it's one of the right institute to be there, because there's so many MBA institutes all over the country. It's very essential that you kind of choose those institutes carefully, because it will obviously determine the way you kind of get all the academic knowledge to get into the corporate life. So with that, let me kind of start off. I guess one of the things I would really start off by letting you know that when I just something about myself. So Rahul Nandi, I'm lead talent acquisition, which is recruitment for GE Healthcare for India, and South Asia, which is essentially Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Maldives, and also ACA, which is ASEAN countries, and Korea and ANZ, Australia, and New Zealand. Apart from that, I have a global role of, as a digital, to manage a digital hiring globally. Before that, I've been in with Amazon in Seattle in the US. I was there for close to around 3.5, 4 years. And before that, with HP for 14 years, I have close to 23 years of experience in the industry. Did my MBA from Symbiosis way back in '97. Did my internship. We used to have a 10-month internship during those times with Venky's. Then went to the UK to do my winter project, which was with Murex Biotech, which is a part of Wellcome Glaxo. Came back, got placed through campus in National Rayon Corporation. During those days, IR industrial relations was one of the most sought after places. HR was non-existent in India. So I was kind of hired to set up the entire department. And since then have been with different companies, and it's been a terrific journey, to be honest. And again, this was not my first choice. My father was a doctor in the army, he's retired as brigadier. So my first choice was always to join the army. But this was more of a default. And so, but I don't regret any day when I look back. So that pretty much about myself. I've married with 2 sons. My older son is doing his medicine, second year MBBS. And my younger one, he's just gone to grade 11. We're settled in Bangalore for the last 14, 15 years, I guess, and been in Pune and Mumbai. So that's pretty much about myself. And let me start with couple of thoughts when I went to an MBA course, right? So, obviously I was I had a very different impression about what the corporate life would be, and I'm sure that must be with you guys too. So you must be thinking about, how the corporate life is, what should we be doing, should we be really focusing on something else and all the stuff. So let me kind of come straight to the point. It's very important to make sure that all your subjects in what you have in MBA, I'm sure it has evolved over a period of time. You kind of have a good knowledge about it, right? So number one, that's kind of important, because you should know in terms of what is accounting, what is personal management, what is HRD, everything about marketing and stuff. I did my major in HR and minor in marketing. So that's number one in terms of how you kind of really get hold of the theoretical part. Now the second part is more interesting, and that's where how you expose yourself and how you really invest yourself in these 2 years will really define you as an MBA graduate, right? There are many colleges and thousands people passing out and doing MBA, and what will really differentiate you is the way you invest on yourself. Yes, you have professors and teachers will guide you in terms of what to do, academic, I'm sure you'll have visiting faculties from the industries, will give you a lot of insight in terms of what it is from a corporate perspective. But I think what's going to be important is how you invest yourself in doing different courses. We have come from a stage of a very specialized way of working to a more generalized type of working. So what I mean by that is that irrespective of whether you're doing your marketing or whether you're doing your finance or your HR, the expectation is that you should have exposure to almost every other area, right? So we don't want, and I kind of feel sometimes people, there are people like my older son, so he will like to understand a subject and then move to the next one. I think what you should do is you should know how deep to kind of get into a subject, and then you come back, so you don't kind of waste a lot of time in dwelling upon one area, right? So the intention is in the 2 years you should have a good knowledge and a good hold of what each of the main segments of an MBA course really teaches you. So which means you should really know how the book of accounts is made, what is, the balance sheets, how to look at the corporate balance sheet, what are the marketing principles, what is HR, how does it really help? the business. So you know, each of these functions are very important. Nowadays, you have a lot of focus on supply chain because the world is moving, and thanks to COVID-19, things have really kind of shifted in terms of how you can really automate supply chain. So it has really broadened the horizon. So that's the second part. The other part is that you should really invest yourself on doing courses like the Six Sigma course, or Lean, on quality, on big data. There's a lot of other courses out in the market. You know, you have LinkedIn courses and all this stuff. So that's something that the colleges may not insist upon, but as someone who have, you know, gone through the rigor in terms of being in the corporate life, I think that's essential. Because what's happening in the industry these days is just, you know, if you look at MD, or if you look at a CFO, or even an HR head, they essentially might not be from the same field, right? It doesn't, you know, there are very seldom people like myself who have been in HR for the last 23 years. But in between my experience, I've always, I did a stint on a business role for a, you know, there's more of a stretch role. My 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 degree in with Harvard was more on a business project. So you have to have an experience in all the facets wherever it touches, because when you get into the corporate life, it is a very different place. You'll be challenged. You will be expected to go out of your comfort zone, and that's the reason I'm saying get used to the fact that don't limit yourself with what is in the syllabus, because universities, although they try the best to have a curriculum which is more inclined with the industry, and there's a lot of partnership. You know, it was not so much in during my days when I was doing my MBA. So they try the best to kind of marry what the industry needs to how much a student can really grasp. But and there's so much you can learn on internship that I guess it's for 2 months, right? And but there's so much of time you still left, because, you know, let's understand, MBA is not a very stressful course like an MBBS um, or or engineering degree, right? So you will still have time, and that's where I will strongly encourage each and everyone to focus on those extra courses which you can do, because what really happens is when you come to a stage where you are, you know, either you're facing different companies for your internship, or when you're coming to a final placement, people are going to look at how curious you are to learn, right? So if I have to define as a recruiter, when I come and any one of us from HR or any other company comes for an internship, let's start with that. I think what we are essentially looking at, people, number one is how important is the internship for the person? What is the candidate really looking at in terms of gaining from this internship period? Which means that does the person has equal interest in doing that project, or is it just by virtue of internship being a part of the course? That's the first one. Second one is how compatible the person is in terms of dealing with different teams, because in corporate you'll be not be only restricting yourself to your own team, but there's a lot of cross-functional teams you'll be dealing with inside the country, outside the country. It's a global world today, right? So how well you can relate and connect to those to different group of people. So that's the second one. So how strong are you in making those connects? The third one is your ability to embrace ambiguity, and that's going to be essential post COVID-19, right? So none of us were prepared that there's going to be a pandemic like COVID-19. So the way business outlook is very different. We have been challenged. Trust me with that. The last 2 months, I have been in a lot of business critical meetings with the global team, trying to understand how can we really work in this ever changing world, which restricts yourself in your houses. People are not used to working from home. It's virtual world, and still you need to kind of accomplish what you have set your goals for yourself and the team, and obviously for the company, right? So company is struggling. So your ability to embrace ambiguity is the third one. The fourth one is how well how eager are you to learning and being curious. is something which is going to be essential. Are you only a person who is very bookish and just reading what the curriculum really has, or are you trying to get knowledge from different parts? How well you are, how up to date are you with the current affairs, and how well can you connect with what's happening in the market? Why are the certain stocks going high? How does economy really plays a part in the whole global corporate world? So that's something which we obviously would like to look at. The other part which, and I'll touch upon this part probably at the end. So once you kind of get into a project and your internship project, please make sure that you join the right, you take up the right project, which will really help you face your final interviews for your placement. It's very critical. Many times I've seen, there are friends who goes to, and they kind of go together just because, I'm more close to that person. So let's go to that company and work, irrespective of what the project is like. I think you need to be cautious and very careful in terms of which projects you're choosing, because that's going to define your final placement. And make no mistakes, recruiters who are going to come, companies who are going to come for final placements are going to be very sharp, and they're going to be looking at what have you learned in those projects. How does the project really will add value to the job we are looking at? How curious you are, were you just a part of the project, or were you leading a project? So one of the questions which people really ask when people say, when I've been interviewing for so many years, yeah, I was a part of the project, we did this and we did that. So one of the questions we really ask is, tell me what was your role in the project and how did you make an impact? What was your contribution? So we get from open-ended questions to more close-ended questions, where we want to explore what the person has really done and how has it really impacted. So that's something which will kind of really define how you're going to manage. So having a right project is going to be important. Companies do matter, but I would not kind of say, because with all the pressure in terms of so many colleges are there. Sometimes the internship roles are restricted in companies. So many times I would not give a lot of importance in the type of companies. If you get a good brand, nothing like it. But if you get a startup, or even if you get a mid-scale company, even some companies which are locally based, it really doesn't depend, because what recruiters really want to understand when they meet you for your final interview placement is that how well have you contributed to the project. Have you really thought out of the box? That is something which we always look into. There are sometimes when we have met people who have worked in companies where we have done projects in companies where we have even heard those names of the companies. But that really doesn't bother us, to be honest. We kind of focus in terms of how the person has really invested in the 2 months of internship. How does the person has the real values which can really match the values which we have for each of the company. Now, each company and each organization has a set of their own culture, and I'm sure you must be familiar with this word. Some of you must have and work experience. I'm sure you have gone through this this word. The other one is values, right? The culture and values really define the work environment of a place, right? And culture is more of the DNA of the employees who work in that company, right? So, and it also derives, and everything goes in terms of purpose, right? For example, in GE Healthcare, what really defines us is the purpose, right? Saving lives. Those critical moments of life in terms of life-saving devices and all that stuff. So each company has different set of values. In Amazon, it was more in terms of customer obsession. Amazon is a company which focuses more in terms of not focusing only on the profits, but is my customer happy? So when I was in Amazon, one of the things which Jeff used to always tell us is, Jeff Bezos, who's a CEO, is that I'm fine if you lose money. I'm looking at a customer when they get into an Amazon site, the person should be really flooded with the different qualities and different types of products, right? So we should spoil them with the variety of choice you have, right? That's one. Second, we would like to give the best product at the lowest price. So Amazon is not looking at making money by selling certain consumer goods or whatever you have. They're looking at, am I making the consumer or the customer really dependent on Amazon for everything, right? So we moved from brick and mortar back in the US. When I was there, we have moved from a brick and mortar type of selling concept to more online selling. So what Amazon dwelled was a very bold move. People thought it might not work, but they were challenging the concept and status quo of selling a product which was online. So what he was focusing on, giving the best customer experience by pampering them with the variety of and choices of a product. Second, can I also help my customer to get the product at the lowest price? Third, can I make sure that my supply chain is so seamless that I can, get the product with a nice packaging back to the customer? So every point in every point of your work, whether you're in HR, in Amazon, or if you are in marketing or you're in finance, one thing which has been drilled, and you'll see this with a lot of ex-Amazonites, people who have been with Amazon, we've been drilled with customer obsession. And what customer obsession really means is that you forget about what it is. You just go all out to get the customer's mind share. So the person doesn't move out of Amazon. So they look at, I've been in one of those calls. So they encourage, when you get into induction in Amazon, it used to happen in Seattle in the US. I'm not sure if it happens in India, but one of the sessions for induction was go and hear how the customer service agents are speaking. And the way they have delegated and empowered the customer service, and you must have seen, many of you have used Amazon. The customer agent has a level of approval, right? So they can approve if you feel that the good was not great, you don't like it. Return policy is fabulous in Amazon. And so, mind you, in the US, the consumer right is very high, right? So even if you get something from a brick and mortar store or anybody, there's always a return back policy, which means usually 7 to 10 days, depending upon the size and the complexity of the product. So imagine if you're in a country, if you're in a market where return policy is a way of life, and Amazon is getting into it, and they obviously cannot say that we will not get into it. So they obviously should have a return policy which is the best in the market. But they don't stop there. They go ahead and say that we will also refund you the money. And the reason why they're ready to take the loss is that they want to get and capture the mind share of the customer, so that we have repeated customers, and they have made majority of people, even including myself, been using Amazon for the last couple of years. We can't think about anything else except Amazon. So that's the amount of investment they do on a customer. Now, if you look back, how does it really impact the company? It does, because every time you kind of buy a product, you're really getting the mind share. Now, from HR perspective, one thing which we kind of wanted to relate is, how do we be more customer obsessed? So very small things in the entire cycle of a function is always focused on customer obsession. For example, in recruitment, there's something called 2 and 5 promise, like going back to a candidate within 2 business days after a tele interview, and going back after 5 business days after an on-site interviews or a face-to-face interviews. Now, if you look at it, oh, that's simple. We can do it. We always do it, but it doesn't happen. Being in the recruitment industry for the last 23 years, I know how many times the recruiters have really gone back to the candidates. with the response, whether you're selected, not selected, and all the stuff. So the reason why we do it, so that there is a wow factor created with the customer. So that's about Amazon. So the reason why I gave these two examples of GE Healthcare, it's more on the purpose. The entire culture is defined and driven on purpose. Amazon is a very different player, very fast moving place. If you happen to go to Seattle and just see the Amazon office, you'll feel that you're looking at Hollywood movies. So it's pretty cool. Dogs are allowed in the campus. It's one of the best campuses I've ever seen. So the culture is very different, and the people derive the culture. Now, coming back to the point, right? When you get into for any interviews for your interview for your internship, or more important, I guess, for your final placement. And this is something which I told your seniors when I came last October, is that always look at the values which they have in the company side. Many of them have the same values and systems. Things which a recruiter always would look at, and that is going to be essential for an MBA when the person really graduates out from the college. Number one, and many of these, by the way, are not taught in the colleges. They are somehow embedded to you, right? Whether by virtue of your courses, by virtue of the professors and the teachers, by virtue of your collaboration with your team, your project, and all the stuff. So number one is ownership. We want people who are accountable, who will not say, okay, this is my work, and even if it doesn't fit in my role, I'm not going to look at it. Let's understand, we are not working in a government organization. It's a team effort. So how accountable are you, and what is your ownership? And there is a difference in terms of ownership's accountability. Ownership is that this work has to be done, and this is my area. So will I be so passionate with my work to make sure that I see the end state? So that's ownership. So number one is ownership and accountability. Number two is bias for action. One of the things that you'll see in many of the corporates and people who have worked in the industry, it's good to have thought leaders. It's good to have people who are strategic, but it's more important to have doers. And what it really means is we need people who are expert in execution. It has to be seamless, because that only comes through when you have a bias for action. And the bias for action only comes when you're passionate about what you're doing. So imagine if you're pushed to do a role which you're not passionate about, and you just want to do it just because you want to earn a living, and you just want to focus and be in between 9 to 5. You wanted to do an MBA because you probably felt that this might give you a higher salary in the market. I don't think mentally you need to kind of come out of that psyche that it is only that. Because if you really have invested on a course like MBA, and if you want to be successful, you need to be passionate and find value in terms of what you're doing. Always understand, ask your manager, ask people who are working, how does my role really impact the business? You should know what, for example, if I'm working GE Healthcare, I should know how GE Healthcare really makes money and profit, right? Now, you have seen COVID-19 all over the place. People must be thinking, oh, medical devices company, it's a blessing in disguise. They must be making a lot of profit. But guess what? Probably GE Healthcare might make a loss of single digit by the time we close this year. Because and you'll be surprised, and you'll be saying, why is it? Because you guys are making ventilators and all the stuff. But guess what? Ventilators and all the stuff which is essential for COVID-19 are low margin products. The high margin products are your CT scan and MR. The reason why I should know about being in HR, because I should know how my company really makes the profit and makes the money, and where do I fit in the entire value chain. Once I'm convinced about it, believe me, I'll be so passionate to kind of give my 100 and 200%. And for me, I feel proud to be in my role, because as I always say, the two noble professions in this world, the one is a doctor and the second is an HR, a recruiter. Because we don't only give a job and facilitate a job to a person, we also get food on the table to the family. So I have derived this as my passion and my interest for this role, right? And as a recruiter and as a person who is in the front line, we define the future workforce. how the workforce will really look like for GE Healthcare. And for me to understand how the future workforce would look like, I should know where the company is investing. So we are moving from a large CT scan machines to a smaller one, more digital, more investment on precision health. And if I don't know this, and then what will happen is, if the company is moving to that place, which is a very high tech, I should know what type of skills are required for the company to be successful, because then I will be able to recruit people who will match my skill set, which I require 5 years, 6 years down the line, right? So that's very critical in my job. And the reason why I'm giving my example is irrespective whether you are in finance or whether you're in HR, you should really understand how your role really defines that. So bias for actions come. The reason I was explaining is that once you understand, you're convinced about why your role is important for the company, you get so much passionate involved in your work, is that your bias of action will be a natural flow, right? It is something people will not have to push you to come at 9 o'clock. I've seen people, R&D engineers, coming at 8 o'clock, spending 48 hours in the office. Believe me, they sleep there. So that is because the passion drives them, right? So bias for action is the second one. The third one is out of box thinking, innovation, ability to manage ambiguity. And I've told this, irrespective whether it's COVID-19 or not, people are interested to know, can we have people in the company who can challenge status quo? Can we have people who join who can be bureaucracy busters? Now, why do we go to campuses? Why do we take fresh talent from the colleges? The reason why we do it, because we need a breath of fresh air. We need people who are not prejudiced by working in a corporate for 5, 10 years, and then your mindset works in a different fashion. You will say, okay, if this thing can be done only in 3 steps. Can we get somebody from outside who has absolutely no knowledge in terms of what it is, completely fresh, like grads like yourself, and come out with something very different? And many times we've seen these young grads, whether it's from engineering colleges or from MBA colleges, they come with path-breaking ideas they have never even thought about. And some of them get into leadership programs, right? And what really happens is a 2-year leadership program. If you're from those premium institutes, then after you graduate, after 2 years being in GE, you're directly put to a fast track level. It could be at a mid-senior level. And that's the reason why we always feel that being creative, thinking out of box is something is going to be essential for every MBA grad. The other one, which I already spoke about, I'm not going to dwell more, is being curious and always ready to learn. So that's the other one. The other thing which is always going to be important, irrespective of whether you like it or not, is how well can you work with little, right? You call it frugality in English. So if we have, it's very easy to kind of run a program when you have unlimited dollars flowing inside your budget. But what really happens is, for example, during COVID-19, right, most of us, our budgets, my recruitment budget has been reduced by 60%, but I still have to kind of go and manage. I still have to go and have my branding done digitally in LinkedIn and many social medias, making sure that GE Healthcare is reflected out in the market as an employer of choice. I still have to pay salaries to my team. I still have to invest on job portals and other channels. Similarly, each one of us have a different budget requirement. Now, if the budget is reduced to 60%, how creative can you be, and how well can you work with little is really going to define you as a successful entrepreneur or an employee or a manager, right? That's the other one. The other one, which I've already spoken about, and is customer obsessed. Everything what you do, everything what you think, everything what you design as a process, the end state should be, does it impact the customer? And customer is not only always external, it could be internal. Your stakeholders are your customers. People, if I'm working in HR, my customers, internal customers are my stakeholders. And who are my stakeholders? My stakeholders are hiring managers or the business managers who want to recruit talent. My stakeholders are HR, who are sitting and managing the employee base. My stakeholders of finance because I work within the same budget. My stakeholders are employees too because I have to run referral program. My stakeholders are also candidates. So whatever I design as a process and program, it has to touch the customer life. And one thing BG does very, and I think does very well, and their leaders, and that's been going on for quite some time, is they do a fantastic work in laying down the process map. We call that the lean way of doing, right? Six Sigma and lean is everything which started off when Jack Welch was here as the CEO. I was at that point in time I was working in Wipro, and I was very I always had a dream of joining GE, and not because of anything, because I was so passionate about the way they do work. And what lean really teaches us is, can you take out waste from the process? So any process when it starts off is always with a good intent, right? People will think, I need this step because, I need a checkpoint and all stuff. But over the years, what really happens is you really build a process which is very heavy, very bureaucratic. People, get little frustrated using that. And then when lean comes in and you kind of take out waste and make it more lean and make it much faster in the process. So these really impact us in terms of having a right customer experience. That's the reason I give you an example of what Amazon does. I'm giving an example in terms of how G does what it does best to kind of manage their customers. The other thing, by the time you kind of get through this course, is your ability to network. And you will always wonder, what does ability to network mean? And believe me, it doesn't stop here. It goes on even if you have been in the industry for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And it's very difficult to understand, right? For example, when I was new, pretty new in the industry, around 5 or 6 years, one thing which, and probably that's more because, I came from army background. My dad was in the army. So one thing which always I kind of felt, to be honest, is that how should I and why should I be bothered about networking with people I don't even feel that I will, work with them. So my sphere of influence should be only my team members. And people used to always tell me, my managers, and I used to be, obviously when we get through a different phase of your career within the corporate life, you get through different leadership courses. And in every leadership courses, whether it was in HP, whether it was in Harvard, in Amazon, even in GE, until date, one thing we have always taught is network, network, and network. And now I understand why is it so important, because corporations are pretty big. It's growing in size. Whether you're working in a startup or a mid-sized company or large corporation, your world and your sphere of influence is just beyond you. Many times, many of the internal roles are filled because you have a good network with the team you want to get into, right? So, for example, if there is an HR person sitting out of India and wants to get into a role in Singapore, for example, in a regional role, and if that person didn't have a good networking within the group, it probably would have been difficult for the hiring manager in Singapore to understand, okay, I can see this, the person has got good trading and all this stuff, but will that person really, blend in a team? Does the person have the right caliber and from a culture perspective? So, there's a lot of question marks. But if you have another candidate who is very networking savvy and the person knows how to connect beyond boundaries of country and regions, and so what really happens for the hiring manager, he tilts towards that person because he has this connect. He brings those positivity and vibes, which probably might not be reflective of a person. Now, you may all argue, is that the right way of selection? But let's understand, we are all human beings. We're not robots. Many times, emotions kind of play a lot of role in terms of how you connect. When you get into an interview, I can tell for sure, we have a script in terms of you want to check on these things. But pretty much, I think 15 minutes is we need to understand if the person is going to be in or out, right? Do we need this person or we don't need this person? And that happens even till the end, right? Many times the senior level, mid-level interviews are a little longer, probably an hour or an hour and a half. is that because the person has spent considerable amount of time in the corporate, so we want to know if and dig deep to understand if the person has depth. But grads who are passing from the colleges, when you get into interviews, interviews probably might not be more than 20, 30 minutes. The interviews are a little longer. Make sure that the person at the other side is trying to understand and reconfirm whether what he's thinking in his head of his mind is right. So you have to be pretty sure. Don't get overconfident. Oh, just because the interview is going long, that means that person is interested. No, that person is checking and reconfirming on different parts. Probably you might be giving responses which might not be very consistent, and the person is kind of checking. So you have to be very sharp in these interviews. So coming back to the point, in terms of attributes for an MBA, other one which is taking shape, and that's close to last 12 to 18 months, and there's a phenomena which is coming across the world. That's called EQ assessment, emotion quotient assessment. I'm sure all of us have gone through IQ and all the stuff. Yes, we need people who are smart. We need people who have good IQ, and all the stuff. But what we are really feeling is we can have a great person who is very intellectual, a sharp mind in finance, for example, CA with, first class first and all the stuff. But what really matters in an organization is the collaboration, right? And these are defined by your EQ. So we have in GE, I am running a pilot for whole of GE in India for grads, grad recruitments, and in AICTE in the other region for across my other regions across all levels. Is Pymetrics, and Pymetrics is a product which is an assessment tool that really tests your EQ. So and what really is EQ is, what's the learning ability, how well can you take stress, how do you react in a conflict, what do you think when you get a new project which you have never done, you ask for help, do you get into your shell? So there are a lot of things which we kind of want, right? So what we do is we see the successful people in sales. We see people, for example, if you want to hire someone, a very smart software engineer. So we look at the best software engineers which we have internally, and then we give them a test. So there is a sample of tests which is done around 50 or 60 people from that same pool. So what really comes out of that, the top 3 and 4 EQ attributes, which really defines what a success really looks like for this role. And then we mirror that to the assessment which we have. And these assessments are basically games. It's an online game. You are playing the game for 30 minutes, 40 minutes. You absolutely will have no idea that you are being assessed, because what are we, the way you respond, the speed you respond, how much time are you taking to respond? What did you think about it? Why did you, choose that option versus the other one? Is something which is being tested at the back end. So there's a lot of analytics which runs in the background, and it throws up a result at the end of your assessment. So what we really look at is an EQ assessment. So EQ assessment is very important. So, and the way you can sharpen your EQ skills is to get into projects. When you get into your internal projects, when you're doing an internship, I'm sure in your college you must be getting into a lot of those courses where you have 7 or 8 people doing a project. How well you collaborate with people. What do you think, and how you kind of reflect yourself when you have an conflict? Do you get very defensive? Do you get very emotional when somebody tells you something, gives you a feedback? So how you can really how you really sharpen your skill is going through that process, doing a self-learning, going back and discussing with your peer group, and be ready to feedback, because I always feel feedback is a gift. So the last one, apart from the EQ assessment, is your ability to give back to the society. One of the reasons why I'm here discussing things with you is there's an inherent, I think many of us, we are so bogged down with our daily course. I'm sure each and every one of of the person working in any corporation, whether big, small, or startup. They have a very busy life. Sometimes people work in India at least for 12 to 18 hours. But the realization and the reflection of giving back to the society, and you have CSR programs, which is going to be very important in terms of how well you connect with outside the industry and give back to the society. Whether you don't have to be a doctor or engineer to kind of give back to the society. You can be an MBA graduate. You don't have to join an NGO to kind of give back to society. Even if you're an MBA graduate, you can still give back to the society in terms of your learnings and all this. So this is exactly what I'm doing. So I think these are a couple of attributes which are necessary. I'm looking at the time. It's 11:46. I think it's a good time to kind of take a pause and see if there are any questions. And if you can help me, ma'am, I probably might not be able to do it.
Sure, Rahulji, first of all, it was a brilliant session. We got to know the stories, the culture and philosophy and value system of great organizations. And the EQ part was really interesting. I'm sure our students would now strive hard to have good EQ in their kitties. And now I am going to read out a few questions, which I find the most relevant ones.
Sure.
Right. Aditya Dhanraj has a question that a newspaper like Economic Times would help us get started and updated. I would request you to answer it live.
Can you repeat it again? I didn't get the last one.
Sir, can newspapers like Economic Times help us get updated?
Yeah. So there's no recipe of can I only look at Economic Times. I would encourage to look at different types of contents which is there on the web. Back in my times, we didn't have internet, right? So we used to read newspapers and books and reference materials. I guess you can. Web is a great place. Don't limit yourself to Economic Times, but there are a lot of places where you can get a lot of different perspective about what you're looking at from a content perspective.
Yeah. Vishesh Tiwari has a question that, sir, if you do a marketing and an HR job and do a marketing job for few years, and after that, can we join company as an HR with a high package?
Oh yeah. So let's understand, right? One of the things which I always see with MBA, especially with new grads, and I'm not saying it's a wrong wish list to have, and I'm probably some of us might be having that when we start off, but don't have the package in your mind. Package will come by virtue of your role, right? But if you're hung up on the package, then you will take wrong decisions in life. And as I said, being passionate is more important, because if you are passionate about something, the money flows. And believe me, I didn't want to go to the US. I never dreamt of going in the US, sitting out of being in HR, but we went, right? Because you have to be so passionate about what you do. So to answer your question, absolutely yes. As I said in the beginning of my session, we have moved away from a very specialized world of doing things to more generalized. So we need people who are generalists, who can have done some stint in business and HR. There are a lot of people, a lot of CEOs who are HR professionals. There are a lot of HR people who have been in finance, been in lawyers. I've seen people who have been a software engineer. They went to HR. I think it's more specific to India, and I've seen India changing. But back in the US, there is nothing. For example, when I was in Amazon, I had people who were recruitment manager, and they were running salons. Can you imagine somebody learning salon and running a business, getting HR? And I think, why the hell this person is here? And they get a very different set of ideas and very different way of thinking. And I think that's something which people, corporates and companies really want. Fresh thoughts. Every time you can't get fresh college grads at a senior level, and obviously you need people from different functions to come, so that by the time you get into a level, and everybody doesn't have to retire as a CEO, right? You can be a CHRO, you can be a CFO, but the point is that how well the person is knowledgeable for all functions, and that is very important. So yes, to your point, you can do marketing, get into HR, go back to finance, come back to marketing. I think people will love you, because people will really admire your passion, your ability to take risks, pushing yourself out of comfort zone. That's exactly what it is. And many times, those people are successful.
Yeah. Rohan Gorai has a question that will this pandemic create any bad impact on a final placement by the time they are a graduate in 2022?
Yes, good question, and I'm glad you asked this question. So yes, there is going to be an impact in terms of the number of roles which will be out in the market. You must have seen after the lockdown was announced in India, because we are not legally allowed to lay off people. There have been a lot of layoffs happening across the board, and this will pick up, right? My pandemic is not going to be there forever. It will bounce back. The way I look at it, and I've been speaking with different industry leaders. I was in one of those TA leaders calls with all the healthcare industry last week. Um, they will bounce back with a vengeance, and believe me when I say that, there will be a flood of jobs after this entire thing's over. But if the pandemic continues till the time you are graduating, which I hope it should not, there will still be companies who will be going to the campuses. Yes, many companies will be going to the campuses. Now, from your perspective, I would encourage you to be positive. Don't think that pandemic will kind of reduce, because there will be still people who will be going to the colleges, because we need fresh graduates, because it really helps us to fit in the cost model, because we always can't hire people at a mid-level, senior level, because it will be, the pyramid will get little obscure. So you need a labor pyramid which will really help. So the reason why we take smart grads, because the energy and the thought process it helps us to kind of move fast, and also helps us to balance our cost model. So I'll be surprised if there are no campus placements by the time you come back. Even for this year, G Healthcare will still be going for next year for for some roles, but not all the roles. But guess what? Even when the market was booming, if you are a negative person, if you feel, oh my God, it will be negative for you, right? So I don't know if you've read this book called The Secret. I read that whenever I go through my downs or lows. It's the law of attraction of universe. You have to be positive to attract things which is going to drive, right? So sorry to get into a spiritual part, but it's something which I always believe. You have to be positive, irrespective of this pandemic or not. You cannot imagine a world without recruitment going to grads, right? Absolutely, yes. Companies will come to the colleges for recruitment. The numbers might be less, but it doesn't matter.
Uh, an attendee has a question. Can we negotiate for packages in double digits in final placements interview?
Yeah, again, student, as I said, right, you're at the just start of the career. I don't think you should be pretty worried about what you get as package. Yes, we all have a financial ambition. We might have financial obligations with the family. I'm sure some of you might have taken education loans. So I'm not denying the fact, but the point I'm trying to make is you should be very sure the type of role you're getting into, right? Because that will define your next 5 years financial package. If you get into a role like in Google, for example, I'm just making it up, and they pay very high at the base level, but that's a job which you never wanted to do, but you just got it because you felt that the package is good. Then what will happen after 5 years? You'll not grow as a person, right? They might lay you off, and So I think that's a wrong approach to go only with the package. But coming back to the question, in campuses we don't have any room for negotiation, because there's a fixed package which we offer across the board. The only place I think where people might see a higher higher salary higher offer being made are people with work X. Now, how important the work experience is for the role will define your increase in the offer vis-a-vis your other peers.
Ronak has a question: how to inculcate in ourselves the right skills and qualities during MBA life?
During
MBA.
Oh, yeah. So I think the first thing comes, guys, and you have to be very positive. I think being positive will, shape you very high. And, probably you must be thinking what this guy is saying, being positive, what does it mean? Being positive is looking at the good in the bad, right? So in pandemic, if you have to look at, oh my goodness, we are here, people are locked, we can't go. But look at it, right? We have a family time we never experienced, right? At least for me, I've been working and been staying outside. Today I get to stay with my family, and similarly my boys who have been on their mobile or internet or games or projects and all the stuff. We get a lot of family time now. So how do you look at things more positive will really define you as a person. I think positivity is the start point. The rest really flows. I can't say there's a recipe that after positivity you get into a communication skill, and it doesn't work like this because God has made all of us different. I think, but one thing which is made very common is being positive. He never said that you'll not have difficulties in your life, right? Irrespective if you get into your people get into astrology and all this stuff. Irrespective of that, the way how you define yourself, being positive, will help you groom as a better human being, as a successful professional.
Utkarsh says that is it true that interning with a startup during initial days can help more in learning about how a company works than interning with a big organization?
Yes, absolutely. I was, I've been in startup long time back, and I joined a company called Neelan. I was a 25th employee, and absolutely yes. Startup has its own plus and minuses, right? So when you get into startup, you'll be taken for a role, but you'll be expected to do 10, 20 different roles because it's a small company, right? You'll probably have 10 and 20 people, 30 people. So don't get bogged down there. Oh my goodness, I was selected for being an HR or marketing manager, right? The designations are very fancy in India, by the way. And then suddenly your boss tells you to do something else which is not part of a job description. But guess what? Startups are like that. You have to accept that you will be doing different types of work. So yes, exposure is high, very high, sometimes overwhelming, but that's your choice. And many times you got a great point, because many times when you get into companies and you've been working in different companies, then you're labeled as a person who will not fit in a fast moving company. One of the reasons I joined Amazon, and let me tell you about myself. If you look at my history, I've been in companies which are large corporations like Wipro, Patni Computers, except for Neelan when we started off, when I started with Goenka, then went into HP for 14 years. I was being labeled as a person who cannot embrace ambiguity. And for me, it was a choice which I made to join Amazon. Amazon is a place where you have to deal with ambiguity. That's the pinnacle of dealing with ambiguity. And then I come back to GE, which is again like a big corporation, 186 years old corporation. So it defines you in a very different way. So I've worked in startups, I work in big corporations. Exposure is good, but how ready are you in terms of trying different things? It's really what really matters.
Rahulji, Tanushri wants to know about some authentic sites from where we can do certification programs which add to our CVs and skills too.
Well, I'm not an expert in learning development, but I can tell you for sure there are a lot of certifications which are out there in the market which doesn't make a lot of sense. You have to be careful. You should not get trapped with a lot of those ads coming, because you don't, any portal anywhere, you just have to pay it. They don't kind of check on the authenticity of the training program or whatever it is. But I think what is important is you can check with people who have done, probably your seniors. There are institutions which are, for example, Six Sigma. So there are institutions which obviously give the big data. So there are institutions which, and big data is a very new technology, right? So you have to see how many people have passed, the success stories. Try to check with the previous batches and see if it's worthwhile. Yeah, be careful, but because don't get. It's very easy to get conned in these things, because there are a lot of those places which I've seen big data and AI and all the stuff, and Salesforce, for example, and most of them is bogus, to be honest. So you have to be careful.
Tanushri has a question that when you have people with almost the same profile, how do you select or reject?
Yeah, as I said, if you have the same profile, what really matters is your personality, your EQ, the way you conduct and you respond to every question. If you're shy, you come inside and you get into an interview and you're just responding. You're like totally nervous, sitting and just looking at everybody's face. Don't be like that. There's nothing to feel afraid, because it's a matter of time when you be sitting on the other side of the table. You have to come inside the room, smile, respond, connect very well, and tell yourself that you probably know them not for the last 5 or 10 minutes, but we've you've known them for pretty long time, make yourself at ease, and then what happens, the way you respond really defines you whether you're going to make, whether you make the mark or not, right? And if you have two people who are, very extrovert, very sharp, response as well, then obviously what really goes next is the depth of knowledge you have in your subject, right? And third, as I said, how culturally aligned are you to the place where you need to work in an organization? Because no, we don't say a candidate is a good or bad. We always say, will the person fit in our type of work culture?
Weber has a question that do companies really consider previous academic scores, that is of 10th, 12th and graduation?
So it depends on recruiter. Usually, yes, they do. Especially, let me be very honest, we shortlist people on the basis of what they have. But personally, I don't kind of have a problem. I've even interviewed people who have got very low marks. So obviously, we need people who at least at least get 50% and all this stuff. But guess what? There might be so many cases in real life, right? People have gone through some personal problems, some financial problems. So it is not always the person's fault that the person has not done well in the thing. Because if the person was really bad, then the person would not be sitting for an MBA entrance, right? And would not be qualified joining a college like Jaipuria, or for that matter, any good college. So for me, that's how I define them. I don't give a lot of importance in that, but yes, there's a cutoff which we would really like to see. And the reason why we come in places like Jaipuria and other good colleges, that they have a cutoff. Now that is debatable. Should we have a cutoff or not cutoff? That's more Indian-centric way of doing things. But once they come inside, then probably we see should we take the top couple of places. We also check the colleges. They tell us which students have really done well in your project. How collaborative you are, because many times 45 minutes interview doesn't give a good holistic view of what the person is really like, right? Unless until you run EQ assessment or pi metrics, then it's very different. Otherwise, you generally come to the college and figure out many times if you've really done well, but you have been a problem creator in your college. And I've myself heard about a couple of cases. There's a person in IT Roorkee. The person got an offer, but somebody in the college of a very senior rank called us and said that person was responsible to create chaos in the college. My goodness, thank God, bless that guy who kind of told us that person was into that. We immediately retracted our offer. So colleges do play an important part in terms of what it is, but at the same time, unless you're really bad and you've done those uncivilized things in the college, I don't think any college will be standing against or holding against you, because I'm sure every college would like their students to get placed.
One last question. How can we build a network being a fresher? Because they think it's difficult for a fresher to start a network. So how can one network being a fresher? This is one question that an attendee has asked.
Yeah, great question. So that is something which I always used to struggle. And it starts with reaching out to people. Be very at ease when you reach out to people, find opportunities to work with different teams and different people. How I think it really depends on yourself. I think there are a lot of opportunities. Even if you don't have opportunity, when you get into some social clubs, many times even we have clubs inside, like photography club and dance club and a lot of other clubs. We have basketball. We have a huge 50 acres campus in Bangalore. So get into that, start interacting with people. I think you're really. It is just like being in the college, I guess.
So
we have some 61 questions.
Hello, I didn't get you, sir.
I'm seeing 61 questions. Have you covered all of them?
No, I haven't covered all of them because quite a few of them were repetitive. Like
repetitive.
COVID,
Okay.
Job, academic scores, previous records, back. So I haven't taken them up all. And so thank you so much. And since we were also a little bit short on time, a few questions which if ever remain unquestioned, we would answer them and we'll take your help. And looking forward to see you in person in all our campuses.
Absolutely.
Rahulji?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a ton. It was an engaging
Thank you.
session. Thanks for
Thank
sparing
you.
time. And I'm sure we all have been benefited with this engagement, and especially the stories, the best part of it. One learns most when somebody shares the experience, and that was the
Right.
beauty of the session. Thank you so much.
I'm glad you guys loved it, and likewise, second, I enjoyed always the session. And all the best to everyone there, and be positive, and I'll see you soon.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Take care.